Everybody ready?
Hold on.
No.
Okay.
I'm visibly taking out my Invisalign.
I'm trying not to look at you because I'm trying to maintain some modicum of privacy for you. If you fail to answer my question, you lose life, okay? This is episode 344 of Insert Credit, the latest in a series of episodes where all four members of our main cast have once again failed to assemble for a recording under circumstances beyond our control. But we've got you covered anyway, horrible buzzer and all. I'm Alex Jaffe, and the worst show that I'm currently watching is the Croatian version of Taskmaster.
Oh, man. I'm Frank Cifaldi. It's a hard question to answer because I don't have like current shows that I'm watching. That's not a thing I do.
You don't watch TV?
Sometimes, but it's usually like something good.
Fair enough.
And it's usually a one show at a time thing.
Yeah.
So let me think. Man, I'm not watching anything bad. Why do people watch bad things? You know, my wife watches bad reality, and it's like one of the few things that we don't bother doing together. And she really likes this show about people doing real estate and
Selling Sunset?
Yeah. You know that one? Yeah,
that's the one that gets everybody. It got my mom. It did not get me.
So that is a show where I have learned that people are compensated by their screen time, and having watched about 20 minutes of it, yeah, those people are compensated by their screen time.
Does that mean they're bad at what they're doing, or it's like this is very obviously fake?
It means it's very obviously they're looking for maximum drama.
Gotcha.
Within their real estate business, which is historically drama free, I believe. I believe real estate is pretty straightforward as a business. Who is this voice though? Who are we hearing?
Yeah, I was getting ready to say, like, you've heard my voice.
Yeah, Tim's not here, Brandon's not here, but we got a special treat for you. Who else is joining us here?
That feminine voice you hear are the dulcet tones of Ash Parrish from The Verge.
Our good friend Ash Parrish is here.
The worst TV show that I'm watching right now actually is The Boys.
Oh.
Is that a bad show?
It's not a bad show. And this is not because, I suddenly woke up and finally realized that The Boys was like satirizing me because I've held these conservative values for my whole life. Yeah, no, it's not that kind of, oh shit, The Boys suck now. It's like, I don't think I have the strength of will to get through a parody of something that is, lived experience. Like watching these terrible people get away doing these terrible things with like the pastiche of like superheroes is like, I don't need the pastiche of superheroes. This is shit that is happening right fucking now. I don't need this. I don't know if I have the strength to get through it. It's just like, ugh, it's so bleak. And like, yep, this is real life. Don't know why I'm going to sit down and digest this as a television show.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, yeah, I feel that about Succession. Like, I recognize that it's probably a really great show, but I bounced after like 5 episodes because it's just like it just feels gross. I don't know. Like, I don't know.
I think Succession is different because there's more personal drama there that doesn't really get replicated in real life. Kind of does, but not to like the level it gets exacerbated by their extreme wealth.
Fair.
Like we get to watch terrible people be miserable. And in The Boys, it's like you get to watch terrible people get away with everything. Like sometimes they're miserable, like the whole Homelander thing or whatever, but it's like it's just terrible people that just get to, go and faff about with no consequences.
A big thing with The Boys, though, specifically, is that it's kind of a victim of its own success. That they keep getting away with this stuff because there's room for them to do another season of it. The problem with The Boys is that, unlike the comic, it's an open-ended show.
I mean, they did say they were going to shut down the show after the 5th season. Who knows whether or not they follow through with that, but like we've got confirmation that it's supposed to end after, not this one, this is season 4, the next one. So hopefully it does.
Yeah. Maybe those chickens will come home.
Is that the Boys to Men transition?
Yeah.
Right. I am, of course, watching the Croatian version of Taskmaster because I need to rank all of the international versions of Taskmaster so I know for sure which ones are the best and the worst. Because once I found out that almost every country in the world has one, I had to figure out how each one of them was doing it. And the answer is that most of them are just kind of ripping off the exact same tasks as the English version. And It's kind of an exercise in monotony, but I'm pot committed at this point.
Taskmaster. Oh, okay. So you're the comic book guy. So when you said Taskmaster, I thought there was just like a Croatian version of like
the Marvel character.
Yeah, Taskmaster. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought.
Oh, trust me. Yes, these two fandoms get confused all the time. There's an artist on Blue Sky who only draws the Marvel character Taskmaster and is constantly harangued about the television show. So this comes from both sides. Anyway. This is Insert Credit. We got two panelists for the first time, I believe, since our pre-pandemic 2010s run. I don't think we've had just two people on the show before. So let's see how this is in all that time.
Really?
So let's see how this goes.
Cozy. It's going to be like MTV Unplugged. We're going to be very intimate.
At no point since our pandemic revival have we had a panel of just two people. So let's see how it goes. Frank. I'm told by Esper Quinn that you won last week's episode.
Oh, they said that, did they?
Yeah, they sure did. They suggested you wanted to talk about rebuilds of games this week.
I could, yeah. I'm glad that Esper remembered what I said. Recompilations is kind of an interesting topic. Ash, are you familiar with this Majora's Mask recompilation thing?
Recompilation? Oh, do you mean like taking assets from another game and making a new game out of it? Is that what you mean?
No. So I will explain the concept of static recompilation as best I can because I find it very interesting, and y'all can just chime in.
Please do
with what you find interesting about it. So this made the news recently-ish, maybe 3-4 weeks ago. It was basically a new approach to making a Nintendo 64 game run on something else. So traditionally, what you do for an older game would be an emulator, right? You would emulate the system that it was on, and you would feed the data to the emulator, and the emulator goes, oh, I'm a Nintendo 64. I'm just going to interpret this like a Nintendo 64 would. Make sense? We all on board?
Yeah. Follow.
Okay. The other end of that spectrum would be the Mario 64 decompilation project, which we might, if you've ever seen videos of Mario 64 running at 4K, full frame rate and everything, that was a decompilation project. That was someone going through line by line like a freak, and just I don't even know how to describe this, and
creating their own replica of the game from scratch.
No. They're not creating a replica. They are going through every line of they're taking that ROM data and they're basically trying to reverse time by breaking it down into what essentially is its original source code. And they're going through line by line and figuring out what each thing actually does. They're poking and prodding at the ROM. It's I don't know, like a neurosurgeon,
wow,
poking at a part of your brain and you taste peanut butter and they write down peanut butter.
Seeing what does what, yeah. And then making changes based on what they find.
Right, and it's years of commenting on this decomped code, decompilation.
Right.
When you take source code, you compile it into the binary that's on the cartridge, right? So they're trying to decompile it back to something like
reverse engineering it.
Yes, that's exactly right. So that is a decomp. Recompilation is this approach that's in between, and it's something that is getting headlines because someone started doing it and they did a Majora's Mask version of it. So a recompilation is, God dang it, I'm just not a programmer. It's so hard to describe. It is, instead of breaking it down and going line by line, it is essentially okay, I'll give an example. We actually did this exact approach on Mega Man Legacy Collection, a product that I produced at Digital Eclipse. And basically what we did was we took everything that an emulator would do with this game and just spit out this C code that, it's just monster nonsense code. But you could run it and it works. And the result is that it's the exact same as running the ROM through our emulator. But it's now running in C code, which is very portable, and you use it on other stuff. But point being, you don't have to go line by line and see what everything does. But also now that it's in C, you can actually you can go in and tweak things and improve things. And I'm making a mess of explaining this, but long story short, what this approach allows is not as much of the grunt work of reverse engineering line by line, but the end result is you now have code that you can modify a lot easier than you could, I don't know, hacking a ROM or something. And the result is that like you can play Majora's Mask now at like any resolution you want with unlocked frame rate on a computer.
Nice.
How long did this take to do?
So I believe this project took like months as opposed to years.
Did they have a big team or something?
No, I believe it was one person.
How?
Oh, I mean, it's essentially like my understanding is it's a similar approach to decompilation in that you are kind of poking and prodding and seeing what things do, but because you're not trying to do a complete teardown, you're just trying to like make it run with the N64 functions on a PC, like sort of emulator like. It's a lot easier to do. And the reason that I find this topic interesting after all that techno talk, okay, the reason I find this interesting is because I think for a long time when it came to classic video games, people who were enthusiastic about making them run on new stuff were maybe equally as enthusiastic about making sure that it performed exactly like it did in the day, right? So, okay, when people have, for example, modified old games, they've modified old games to work on their original hardware. We've always been kind of stuck in these weird boxes. And I think what this has sort of got people thinking about is that we don't have to do that. That like we can simulate a game but go beyond its technical limits from the time. And I think that's neat. And I think
runs, Frank.
Exactly, right? Like they need to run exactly as they did because like we need a
otherwise
standard.
It's a new category.
But I just think it's a really neat approach because like what they're going for is like, what if Nintendo actually gave a crap and made like a good modern version of Majora's Mask from source, right? This is what it might look like. And they made a really easy package where it's just like, it's Majora's Mask on PC. And it's like so simple. Like you just point it at a ROM and you double click something and it just installs Majora's Mask like it's a PC game. And it just like runs at your refresh rate and everything. But I guess if there's a topic to discuss, it's that, right? It's like, do we need these old games to sort of adhere to what they were? Or, can we start sort of softening those restrictions for the sake of something that is sometimes I would say like more accurate to the artist's intent than sticking to the originals. I need to shut up and let someone else talk here.
No, I found that fascinating. Like I mean that. Like, I'm not just saying that to, make you feel better about rambling, but this is technical stuff, like that kind of technical stuff, especially technical stuff involving older consoles is not something that I get into because I'm a baby and I didn't have those consoles when I was a kid and I don't know anything about programming, anything like that. So like being able to explain that and break that down and talk about what the freaks in the programming world are doing with the old stuff is actually very interesting. So don't feel bad. Freaks affectionately.
What games do you think would benefit most from this sort of rebuild treatment?
Oh, I'll give you the insert credit classic example of Raw Danger on the PS2.
Oh, yes. Yeah, we got to get that going. Absolutely.
Because, the problem there is that emulating it's a similar problem to the 64, actually, which is that emulating that hardware kind of sucks. Like it's just not easy to do. There's a lot of just weird proprietary stuff happening on the PS2, and for that game in particular, and also for what's the other IRM game that we talk about all the time? Is that it?
Steambot Chronicles?
Steambot Chronicles, yeah. That and Raw Danger do similar things with like the weird technical stuff they do to like make things look like fog are not things that like are really emulated at all yet. But then also, like we've discussed, Raw Danger runs at like 18 frames a second or something. Like it's just awful. And this approach, I think this approach would benefit the PS2 more than absolutely, like even the 64. Like I think those games are just incredibly hard to access because of how hard it is to emulate that system. And in the same way that like all this FPGA stuff like the Mister has gotten people thinking beyond like what software emulator does. I hope that people are inspired by this sort of recomp approach because it allows you to sort of stay true to the intent, but like shave off the rough edges and maybe even add stuff. The way we used it actually in Mega Man Legacy was we did this thing called the challenge mode where I just kind of like sliced off different sections of levels in Mega Man and the goal was like to get to this portal that I drew in the game space like as quick as you could. It was like a speedrun mixtape, right, of different parts of Mega Man. But it was fairly trivial to do that feature because we had spit that game out into C code. So we could do things like, getting slightly technical here, but like we could do things like insert breakpoints into Mega Man to like sort of stop the simulation and look at what's going on. And we could draw in the screen space without like hacking in something that would work on an NES. And I don't know. I guess it's neat. Go check out the YouTube videos. Go check out the discussions. I think Digital Foundry has a really good primer video on how and why this works. And I want people to be inspired by this and make older games play better. That's what I want. Ash, go do it.
All right. Yeah,
No.
do that, Ash. Why aren't you doing it right now?
Because I write the words. I don't do the code.
Yeah. Okay. Next topic. Y'all see that Nintendo Direct?
You know what? I didn't watch any of the Summer Games Fest stuff, but because all the trailers were on Nintendo's YouTube channel, I did one night just go through plop, just like watch through them. So I guess I did watch the Nintendo Direct, just not in order.
Good.
That counts for our purposes.
I think it does.
You did a rebuild of the Nintendo Direct.
So is that the question? You want us to discuss the Nintendo Direct?
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
All right, Ash, what do you got?
Nintendo just went in and ate everybody's lunch, and they did it better and probably cheaper than anybody else that was in attendance for Summer Games Fest. So kudos to them. I think, everybody's really excited about, Metroid 4 and the new Zelda game. And I'm, of course, excited at least about the new Zelda game.
Oh, yeah, Frank, I know how much you loved that Link's Awakening remake in this style.
We'll get back to that.
Okay, so maybe you guys can talk about this because, I associate you with the old games, right? I have been fighting for my life on Twitter, which, is a thing I do all the time because I'm me and I have opinions and they don't like when I have opinions. But, this whole thing about Zelda is finally getting her own standalone game has gotten, a certain subset of people very upset because they're like, well, what about Zelda's Adventure and Wand of Gamelin?
Really?
And I'm like, you
Those
can't
don't
be
count.
serious. You are not
Those
a serious
don't count.
person. They really do not count. And I wonder if...
I would say, what about Cadence of Hyrule? You could play a Zelda in that.
Yeah, you can play Zelda in Cadence of Hyrule. You can play her in, both Hyrule Warriors games. It's not
But,
that
this is a Zelda game.
Exactly, that's the point. But it seems people are determined to willfully misunderstand the excitement about this. Because I'm flailing oh my god, this is great. Happy Pride because Zelda has always been mother, right? She's mother, and anything good that happens during Pride Month is obviously for queer people anyway. So of course, Happy Pride. But it's
Sure.
People are willfully interpreting or misinterpreting the things that I'm saying as oh, they made Zelda woke now. And, all the wokeists are very excited because, Zelda is now finally a girl. And I'm I wonder if you guys can talk about just how much, involvement or activity Zelda got up to in those dumbass CDI games that nobody alive right now who is a Zelda enjoyer has probably played.
I have played them.
Yes, you have. Recently.
Well, yeah, because you guys are edge cases.
Yeah.
Be serious here.
Well, I am being serious. I'm about to tell you about these games. They are fan games that through a contractual loophole got sold. That's all they are.
So these are not Nintendo produced.
Nintendo did not produce these.
Okay.
Right.
Nintendo had no hand in these games at all.
No, I don't even think there was an approval process.
And they shouldn't even be counted as Zelda. Should they be counted as Zelda games in your opinion?
Well, if you are someone whose entire opinion on what video games are is based on capitalism and what was sold to people for money, then I guess they're canon Zelda games. But realistically, we don't know the contract, but there was some funky contract between Nintendo and Philips when Nintendo was considering using the CDI as a CD system for new games. There was something in that contract that allowed Philips to create games with Mario, Zelda, and a lot of people don't know this, Donkey Kong. They just never shipped any. And I believe without any supervision. And so these, like I said before, these are basically just fan games by Western developers that were sold for money. They are not canon Zelda games in any way. There was no... I cannot imagine there was any Nintendo oversight because they are very bad.
I'll say this. They weren't in Hyrule Historia. There was no place for them in the timeline, so they are officially not canon.
Then I need both of you to like just come to my Twitter mentions just for a little bit. I know that's
no,
like,
I got out of Twitter because I didn't want to have this conversation anymore.
Just let this person know gently, like, hey, no.
I don't do gentle. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, if you want to do it, abrasively, I wouldn't mind that either, honestly.
Listen, chump.
I'm coming from another perspective that Frank and I were both really excited for the Link's Awakening remake. And when it came out with this exact kind of aesthetic and approach, it was underwhelming.
I like the aesthetic. I don't know if if we've made that clear. Okay.
It was underwhelming, and I'm concerned that this is going to come from that same sort of area.
My dislike of the Link's Awakening remake has nothing to do with the aesthetic, which I think is great. It is the technical performance of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is like, I think this is on me, but in that game, when you go in and out of environments, like it drops frames as it's transitioning, and there's just something in my brain where my toes curl into the ground whenever that's happening, and I couldn't play that game. It is the first and only time that I have called Nintendo asking for a refund.
Wow.
They didn't give it to me.
All right.
And they promised a patch was coming.
Like physically call?
I did call on the phone. Yes.
Why? Is that the only way you can do that?
Because it was a digital purchase.
And the
Who
only
do they
way
have manning the phone lines over there? Is it Toad?
Well, I don't know if it's the only way, Ash, but they don't give refunds. Like, that's not a thing. So I figured my only chance was to call on the phone. And they have had spectacular phone customer service. A lot of people don't know this.
Speak to the manager voice. You use that privilege, Safaldi.
I want to speak to the manager of Nintendo. Yeah.
And it didn't work, though.
No, it didn't work.
Oh, okay.
They don't give refunds.
We got a Metroid Prime 4.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, along the lines of what I just said, my biggest takeaway was, God, this stuff looks just so old now to me.
Yeah.
Like, Switch games just look like, did you watch that trailer for the Looney Tunes basketball game?
No.
Oh, maybe that wasn't in the Direct. Maybe it's just on Nintendo. Maybe they took it out of the Direct. I don't know, but it's
I see it here. Yeah.
Okay.
Looney Tunes Wacky World of Sports.
So I'm not disparaging this developer, but you watch that trailer and like there's like one of those toon shaders, like where it makes the 3D models look like they're drawn. And it's probably a pretty good shader, except it's running on the Switch. And if you look at these poor unfortunate cartoons, like their outlines are like bleeding into each other, and like Bugs's whiskers are like disappearing sometimes and stuff.
Yeah, I'm watching this now, and it's not great.
It looks really bad, right?
To watch it.
And can you see how thick those outlines are? They had to make them like extra thick so that they didn't disappear because of how low res the shader is forced to be because it's running on a potato. And I just saw that throughout the Direct. I just like, I shouldn't be seeing a trailer with dropped frames. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you should at least fake that or something.
Well, we know that Metroid 4 is not going to be on the Switch that we have now, right? We know that.
Of course it will be.
I mean, it will be, but it will also be a launch title for the new one.
Yeah, one of those straddlers.
Well, sure, but also they're going to limit what they could do with the game because it has to run on this old thing.
Fair enough.
My takeaway watching all this was like, I wish I could be excited about Metroid Prime 4, but like, I don't know. Again, maybe this is just a me thing, but it's like the performance of anything on the Switch is like, I just can't do it anymore. So I don't know. Maybe if there is a Switch 2, then I'll be excited about this new Metroid game. But but as it is, it's just like, this doesn't look substantially different to me than the remake of Prime 1. It's if you just want more of that, cool. But I don't know. I'm sure it's a great game.
Yeah. We got a new Mario and Luigi game. You guys down with those Mario RPGs?
I like them. I didn't play Bowser's Inside Story, but it looked fun. But I really dig the brother attacks in Brotherhood. They look really like chunky. I saw a tweet, someone comparing them basically to like, playing old school Super Smash Brothers, and then it kind of looked a little bit like that. And I was like, oh yeah, I can dig that. Yeah. That's fun.
That was a delightful trailer, I thought. Yeah.
Dragon Quest III was a game that was very important to me as a kid, but I don't think I can go back to a remake. I don't know. There's something about it.
I mean, I'm not a Dragon Quest person either. I actually got to play that game at Summer Games Fest, but I wasn't allowed to talk about it until like the Direct came out. It's fine. Like, it's Dragon Quest. it's got that 2.5 Octopath look to it, where it's like sprites, but it's like a fully rendered 3D background and all that stuff. And like, it's Dragon Quest. Like, it feels like if I say generic turn-based JRPG, they are going to kill me. But that's what it is. Like, that's what it feels like. Like, I look at that and I don't see any functional difference between like Suikoden or Ayuden Chronicles that my husband is playing. Like, it's all that. They all occupy that same place in my brain. I mean, because I didn't grow up with those games, I don't have that attachment to them. There's really nothing when I look at them that differentiates them for me versus like, Kingdom Hearts or Final Fantasy or anything like that.
No, I get you.
So I'm glad those people are happy. Like, great. Good for you. Not for me. But another thing that I thought was really interesting from that, and something that I'm working on right now, is the reaction to the Marvel collection that's been...
I was about to bring that up next.
Yeah.
That's wild.
It seems to be very significant for the fighting game community. And I mean, we know why, but I'm very interested to hear, from the fighting game members, why this is a big thing that it is. And hopefully, as EVO comes down in the next month, we'll see, the impact that this announcement's had on the community.
In fact, here's Patrick Miller to talk about the effect that the Marvel vs. Capcom collection is having on the community right now. Patrick?
There are many reasons for fighting game lovers to celebrate the Marvel vs. Capcom fighting collection. The veterans get to relive our glory days, the new heads can dig into formative moments in our genre history, and these games can find new competitive life now that they'll be easily accessible on modern platforms. Capcom's interpretation of Marvel via fighting games has always been my favorite version of Marvel, and to see their old collaboration revived fills me with nostalgia for old arcade memories and a little hope for a possible future. However, the community's fondness for Marvel vs. Capcom, and Marvel vs. Capcom 2 in particular, extends far deeper than familiar characters and youthful memories. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is the apex of a generation of fighting games that was naively unaware of how far people would go to play them, and did not have time to give a shit. Modern competitive games are typically designed within a set of limitations that is careful to curtail the ability for one player to completely and thoroughly outclass another player. We have comeback mechanics and input buffers and simplified controls, because when people play a game, they often do not want to play one where their opponents are rewarded for working harder for the win than they want to work themselves. Practice harder than me, and you're a tryhard or a sweatlord. Refuse to match my effort, and you're a filthy casual. More than any other fighting game I've ever played, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is a sandbox for players to refine and perfect their ability to the point where the game is literally unplayable for the opponent. Endless unreactable mix-ups, impenetrable zoning patterns, unblockables, and infinite combos, and chip damage block strings, it's all here, waiting for you to be the best possible self that you can be in order to do the worst possible things to someone else. It's an airplane that allows players to recline their chair far back enough to slam their headrest into their neighbor's nuts. The only chill found in Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is negotiated between the people playing it, and it never lasts long. I do not exaggerate when I say that Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is one of the most destructive video games I've ever seen. I have seen people abandon educations, derail careers, destroy friendships, discard relationships, and sacrifice reputations at the altar of Marvel. Marvel 2 is gotcha before gotcha, the gateway drug to gateway drugs, and if it gets its hooks in you, it will show you that you are willing to push yourself harder and further than you ever thought, but only in pursuit of something that will ruin your life. If you're lucky, you walk away with a new appreciation for the banal, you finish your degree with enthusiasm, get a nice stable job in your local city government, and wake up every morning next to someone who never needs to know about your past life. Those who are less lucky have more visible scars. I love fighting games for what they teach us about ourselves and each other, and I love Marvel because it shows us things any other game would gladly hide from you. The world of fighting games without Marvel 2 is cleaner and safer and a little less honest. And I welcome Marvel's return so a new age of heroes can learn that only the devil offers power as deep as your willingness to chase it. And in Marvel vs. Capcom 2, the devil himself is just mid-tier at best.
Here you go, guys. Some breaking news for you. I'm going to drop it in the general chat.
Okay. We have breaking news, everyone.
Whoa, Frank Cifaldi. Get excited.
No thanks.
No?
Bubsy in the perfect collection.
All right, everyone. Bubsy is back in the perfect collection.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
No, I think I have something else too. Another thing. Oh,
No.
I
Okay.
think Limited Run is doing their
doing
like
their
Summer
E3
Games
thing,
Fest thing. Yeah. So we've got Bubsby and Gex.
Oh, Gex Hive, rise up.
Yeah, Gex we knew about.
Yeah.
But I think Bubsy is new. Makes sense. Audie at Limited Run is a Bubsy fan. I think ironic. I'm not sure. It's interesting that Atari owns Bubsy and Digital Eclipse, and yet, I think Digital Eclipse is just not up to snuff for Bubsy. That's what yeah, good for Bubsy.
Good for Bubsy.
Good for him.
I guess this is also going into a little bit of Summer Games Fest, but I don't think you guys talked about it based on the show notes. Why is there a Lego Horizon game?
Not a good question.
Why shouldn't there be?
Like, why specifically that? Like this is such a wild swing for like the first like video game based on like a first like you don't pretend it's not a weird choice.
I don't think it is, honestly, believe it or not. Like, I mean, we've got Lego Star Wars, we've got Lego Indiana Jones, we've got Lego Batman, we've got tons and tons,
which are all huge, like enormous, world recognizable franchises.
That's my first question: is Horizon like a bigger franchise than I understand? Like maybe it is.
Not really. Honestly, I don't think it is. Like, I mean, it's very obviously very important to Sony, and it does really well. They make decent Horizon games. They're enjoyable, whatever. But in that whole Lego branching out into all these different kinds of IPs and snapping up Nintendo finally, it makes sense to me that they would do something like this. It seems well suited to the Lego brand. I got to play it at Summer Games Fest. It was fun. Like, those Lego games are cutesy fun, family friendly titles that are kind of like training wheels for like the larger games that they're based on. It doesn't move my needle, doesn't register to me as anything particularly out of the ordinary or anything like that. It's just like, okay, we've got this big IP conglomerate that's anxious to gobble up more things and put more things in front of people that are accessible to them, and Horizon is a great choice. Like, works fine for me.
I think when I'm thinking it through and recompiling it, I think that this probably didn't start with, oh, Horizon, what a good idea. I think it probably started with Sony and Lego trying to figure out how to do something together.
Yeah.
And, if you go through Sony's IP, like what do you have? Like God of
Spider-Man.
War? Spider-Man is, well, okay, that's fair.
Wouldn't the Lego Spider-Man game be great?
No. Now you have...
That's next.
Now you have Disney taking like a third of the profit. If you're doing Spider-Man, right? Like, Sony owns Horizon outright, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. So, like, what IP do we own? But also, what IP do we have that young people like? They might be actually trying to like create a young audience for Sony IP, right? Like they might be trying to get people into this IP so that they graduate up.
And they have two facets of that, because they've got Astrobot and now they've got Lego.
Yeah.
But this is, like, what I keep thinking about is this is also coming off the fact that I just learned literally yesterday that there's going to be a Lego Pharrell biopic this year. Have you heard about this?
Yes, unfortunately.
What is Lego doing?
This is somebody's crack fan fiction, because I'm pretty sure I saw a tweet from years ago about how Pharrell should just make his biopic and they should make it in Lego and they should not explain anything. And then someone in Pharrell's camp read that tweet and you know what? I'm in. And they did that and made it work. Don't know why, but like I said, that it's somebody's crack fic. Sure, it works. Like, we love the Lego movies. Like, the Lego movies are actually pretty good. They were very generally well received. I enjoyed them. So, I mean, it's weird, but it's just like, okay, yeah, this is business as usual to me.
You clearly have a higher tolerance for weirdness than I do.
I'm me, dude. Like, I'm a monster fucker. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you play that too? Yeah.
Yeah.
You play the Monster Hunter porn parody as well?
I mean, I would. Oh, you mean Elden Ring?
Whoa!
That brings me to the next thing I wanted to ask you about specifically,
Okay.
Ash.
Sure.
In video games with romanceable NPCs, should you as a player be unrestricted from pursuing any character, regardless of gender or sexuality?
You're funny. I think there's two parts of this question. There's the part that I feel like me as a player, and there's me as a person. Me as a player, if I see something I like, I should be able to go for it, period, because I want to do that. As a person, though, that does not work in real life. Like, you just doesn't. Like, sometimes there are people who are not attracted to me because our sexualities are incompatible. And I think it's not better, but I think it's okay if games with romantic choices reflect that. Like, not everybody is going to be for everybody, because that's not how it works in real life. I know that's probably geared towards, the reveal of Dragon Age Veilguard. And when I spoke with the game director for that game, like, they told me, like, yeah, every character is pansexual, which is like the opposite end of that, because it's like, how often do you run into like a cabal of entirely pansexual people? Like, that doesn't really
They do hang out
happen.
together.
I mean, they do. So it's realistic, but then again, it's not like where you compile all of these people together from these disparate places, and they're all queer and they all are pansexual. It kind of strains credulity, but like it's possible. So like, Dragon Age kind of took that other route. But when I was speaking to the game director, who's this lovely, lovely woman, she was telling me that, even though all of our characters are pansexual, like the characters that you don't pursue, or the characters that you might pursue halfway or give up, like they have their own, like, not sexualities because they're all pansexual, but like their own preferences or whatever. And you will see that in the game itself. Like, you will see that manifest. So it's not like these players are tailoring their likes to you as the player, which kind of rubs people the wrong way when you say something is player sexual. They have their own like unique bespoke identities that are, fully formed and unfuckwithable with boundaries and all that kind of stuff that you'll be able to see.
Hasn't BioWare always kind of done that? Like with Tali and Garrus in Mass Effect, how sometimes like your NPCs will hook up with each other if you don't.
Yes, they
date
have.
either of them?
Yes. And there's hints that will happen in the new Dragon Age game as well. So I'm okay with the idea that, like, even if I, don't pursue these people, or even if they're all pansexual, we'll see them inhabit their identities in different kinds of ways outside of me as the player. And so that's fine. Yeah, like, because I remember specifically with Dragon Age, like, when I was first playing, I was going to romance Solus, but because I was a human player and he only gets down with elves, I couldn't romance him, so I had to look elsewhere for it. So I get that, like, that was a bit of a, thank God, because God, that romance is terrible. Sorry, Solus.
Bullet dodged.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So like, I get the idea, like, oh, I want that person, I want them to be for me, but it's sometimes better when these characters are fully formed human, or, fully formed people with their own bespoke identities that, aren't just tailored to the player.
What this made me think of, give me a second here, Animal Crossing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm with
and
you.
the reason it made me think of that is because I felt that the charm of Animal Crossing, I only played the first two in any serious way. And the charm I thought of it was the friction of it, where I couldn't do whatever the heck I wanted. Like, I was the newcomer in this neighborhood, and not everyone just like grafted to me, and I had restrictions on what I could do. And like, I feel like the series went in a direction ultimately that I don't appreciate it, where like this new, it's basically just a dollhouse now. It's just a dollhouse with timers, right?
But that was always the ethos of Animal Crossing anyway, I feel like.
Oh, I disagree. Like,
oh, really?
I mean, to me, the first couple of games, yeah, there's a dollhouse component to it, but it also felt like I had to sort of navigate a society's rules in order to do some doll housing. Whereas I feel like this new version is just like, oh, you don't like dirt? You want it to be water instead? Like, it's just like, it's just too much freedom. And you can see why my brain is going that way, because I feel like a game where you could theoretically like seduce anyone in the game just feels to me like not as compelling as someone seeking romance. As a person who might seek romance, it doesn't seem as compelling to me to be able to romance literally anyone I see. I think the inability or even rejections are just part of the heal, even if it's not fun in the moment.
And I feel that because the way that, as you would in real life when you get rejected by something like that, is that you wind up finding things that you wouldn't even have considered because, you didn't get your first choice, right? My first choice was Soulless.
Right.
I didn't get my first choice. So I wound up romancing Cullen, which the sad paladin, which was just his own thing, but that romance ended up being far more enriching and meaningful to me than I think anything I would have got out of the Soulless romance. So definitely that's there, but there's this tension in between, giving players what they want and simulating real life. And there's like no easy answer for that because we've done it both ways to great effect for both ways. Like you can't, if you're a woman and you want to romance Dorian, you cannot because he is very strictly a gay man. And the story that is attached to him as a gay man is so much more enriching and fulfilling and beautiful to see play out than what he would be if it was just like, I get down with everybody. So I definitely get it. And that's not something that, we can say one is better than the other, honestly.
Depends on the experience you want to give the player, yeah.
I mean, for Animal Crossing, I think I would prefer it better being the God King Emperor of everything versus, someone living in this new environment and having to adapt to it.
You are like a Twilight Zone episode victim waiting to happen. Like there's some kind of monkey's paw situation someday where you're going to be able to like romance whoever you want, and you're going to learn why
love is meaningless to you now.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a great idea for a video game presented as like this whole, romanceable dating sim kind of deal where you can get anybody. And then as you slowly go along, like it gets worse and worse and worse. Like Doki Doki Literature Club, but not as crazy.
Well, it is the Twilight Zone episode with the love potion, right? Where it's just like, I get the person that I always wanted, and she dotes over me way too much, and I'm
like I don't know if she ever actually would like me if not for this.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you please explain the lore of Elden Ring to me? You have 6 minutes.
Oh God, no. I refuse to do that. Like, that is not something that I can do. Okay. So the thing with, you are a dude.
He just leaned over everyone. Like the camera angle changed. He leaned over.
Locked in. You are a dude that comes to this place. You have no idea what's going on. All you know is that years before you got there was a big war. A goddess decided to shatter this Elden Ring. She also shattered herself into different aspects. There were a bunch of gods who died overnight in this like really violent thing. And now your job is to beat a bunch of messed up little dudes that are all claiming the various tiny little pieces of this thing that was shattered in order to bring them together in order to have dominion over this place. That's the best I can do. High level, it is way more to it than that, and it gets way more weird and creepy and freaky, and it involves giving birth to dead people and all those kinds of things. I can't do it. It's not something that you should ask anyone to do. We've got scholars and YouTubers that are way better at that than I am, and they've got 10-hour videos that will do exactly what you need them to do.
I don't have 10 hours.
Don't ever ask me that question again.
4 minutes and 42 seconds. Why is this your job? To like beat all these guys who want the little pieces of the Elden Ring.
Because they've got the different pieces and I need them. So I'm like, it's like Inuyasha where you're collecting the shards of the jewel. Like I have to go find...
So you want the Elden Ring?
Yes, I want to be the Elden Lord. But the Elden Ring is like been shattered, and all these different pieces that it's been shattered into are called runes. And all these bosses have all these different kinds of runes. So I go to the bosses like an episode of Inuyasha, like collecting the little shards of the Shikon jewel in order to put them together again so I can have the completed Elden Ring to rule over the lands between. And then now there's new DLC where basically you're getting the Mikola Gaiden, where like you're going off into this little offshoot world to learn about what happened with Mikola and a guy named Mesmer and like this big purge. And I don't know. It's really complicated.
You're comparing it to Inuyasha. Who's the Shishomaru in this situation?
Mesner.
Okay.
Which is interesting because he's the bad guy that you will have to fight. And it's funny because, I was at Summer Games Fest and I got to interview Miyazaki. And when does this episode come out?
This episode comes out Monday.
Okay.
June 24th.
So I will have published my interview with Miyazaki by that point. So I'm okay with saying this. Like, I asked him specifically, like, did you mean to make him so hot? like so the guy Mesner is like, he's the guy on all the box art. Like you can see him like prominently featured in all like the launch trailers or whatever. He's like this super sexy looking redheaded dude. And I'm like, did you mean to make him hot? Like how are you responding to this reaction to like, oh, Elden Ring daddy? Like, yeah. And basically his answer is, by the time you're done with the DLC, you probably won't think he's as hot anymore, because they like he hints that there's like some kind of monstrous transformation that this guy goes under. Oh, and I'm like, you really didn't say anything. Exactly. Like you didn't say anything that changes my mind at all. Like you understand who you're talking to, right? Which he didn't, because Miyazaki does not know who I am.
Please,
but still,
he can only be so hot.
Yeah, like please stop. You've already told me this.
How George R.R. Martin-y is this whole thing?
So we've had this conversation with Miyazaki before about George R.R. Martin's involvement in this, and according to the things that I've been able to piece together, like he put together like the Bible, like the foundational script for this world, and From Software has basically like built upon that to create what we've seen. And you can see a lot of his stuff in it because, you've got all of these different kinds of gods. They're all like brother and sister. It's all vaguely incestuous, and there's a lot of dynastic struggle and things like that. And you can see like the elements of Game of Thrones in that, and not a lot of food descriptions in there. So I guess that part of him is missing. But yeah, like I can see some of the DNA in there, but we don't know specifically, what he wrote and what they build upon. But I think the basic foundation, especially with like Marika and the different kinds of gods and their relationships and their messy ass relationships too, because there was one god who like married a girl and then spurned her and then she went crazy. Like that's very George R. R. Martin. I'm pretty sure there's like some house in Westeros that has undergone exactly that.
Yeah, I'm hearing that.
So yeah, like it's there, but it's hard to say how much is him, because he likes weird, fucked up little things, and so does everybody at From Software. So it kind of all blends together.
Oh, I do have to ask one question on behalf of Frank. His favorite thing about Elden Ring: is there a lore explanation for why the horse can double jump?
It's a goat.
Oh.
It's like a half horse goat.
And goats can double jump.
Yeah. No, right. The horse can jump once and the goat can jump once. So when you get a hybrid, that's two jumps.
I don't know if you've ever seen like nature documentaries where you see goats like perched up on like sheer cliffs. Like sheer cliffs. And when and that Torrent is also half goat, like the kinds of things that he does makes so much more sense than if you just think he's a horse.
Like air stepping.
All this lore is very complicated for something that I just think of as like adventuring with Donald and Goofy. I don't know.
Wait, are we talking about Elden Ring still?
We'll be right back after a quick break. The following ad supports the Insert Credit podcast, but is not necessarily endorsed by its individual members. This is the Insert Credit Quick Break. I'm Alex Jaffe, and this week's episode of Insert Credit is sponsored by the Houseflies, a very cool post-punk shoegaze alternative grunge goth rock band releasing their first full album, Mannequin Deposit, on July 2nd across all platforms. I got to listen to Mannequin Deposit myself and had a very cool time. Right now you're listening to my favorite song off the album and their lead single, She Hums Mozart. Mannequin Deposit will also be available for download or on vinyl at wilhelmsons.com. Check out She Hums Mozart, Mannequin Deposit, or even the Houseflies 2022 EP Glimmer as soon as you're done listening to this episode. In fact, pause the episode, do that now, and chill out with the Houseflies as our musical interlude before we bring you back to the dirtbag. Get buggin'. Welcome back to Insert Credit. Time to go to the dirt bag. This is the point in every episode where I get a question from patreon.com/insertcredit, where for mere dollars a month, you can have the opportunity to submit your own questions to us, get monthly bonus episodes, and more. This week's question comes from Aaron Pickus, which I tweaked a little bit to make it a little more interesting. Sorry, Aaron.
A little more palatable.
Yeah. In the days of game rentals, it was possible to rent a game and open the case at home only to discover that you had been given the wrong game. If you were working in a rental store, what games would you intentionally place in the wrong cases to give renters a different experience?
I have an answer for that, Frank, but so you go first.
Why do I have to go first if you have an answer?
I'm just like,
this is reverse logic.
Because Ash's answer is so good that it's going to stop all conversation.
It's the headline answer. I see.
It's the anchor answer.
I want to hear this, Ash.
Well, do you have an answer, Jaffe? I don't want to go first. That's all.
Okay.
She doesn't want to go first.
You don't want to go first?
I don't know that. Man, I'm not familiar enough with current games, but for me, like the heart of my answer is I want to replace like AAA games with like the bad knockoffs. I just don't have any good specific examples, but we have Elden Ring at home. Version of Elden Ring, whatever that is.
That is kind of what I was thinking. Like, I would put copies of BioShock 2 in cases of BioShock because it's the slightly better BioShock.
Okay, you're doing the opposite. Yeah. See, I'm doing the like.
No, I want to do them a favor.
I want to do the dollar store knockoff versions.
Yeah.
Of what they've got. Yeah.
Well, see, now I wish I had gone first, Jaffe, because you kind of stole my answer. It's a very Ash answer. I'm replacing every copy of BioShock Infinite with, I don't know, Wolfenstein 2, like the new blood. That's what I'm doing.
Oh, that's a good one, yeah.
Man, you think anyone's renting BioShock Infinite?
There are probably people renting BioShock Infinite, and I'm going to replace all of their discs.
Okay, let's do it.
Either Deus Ex or Wolfenstein 2, The New Blood.
Yeah.
Or like a movie.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Give them a good movie.
Like, if someone tried to rent Gex, I would put a Planet of the Apes in there. Because you'll get as much enjoyment out of this.
Oh, okay. Okay, I guess our rental store is assuming that we have every game ever made and people want to rent weird old stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, so like all the Sonic games are just replaced with like Garfield games or something.
Sure. That's where you put your Bubsies.
Yeah. Not Bubsy.
Oh, whoa. Yeah. Your face is really scrunching up.
Okay, what do you put in the Bubsy cartridges, in the Bubsy boxes then, Ash?
Freedom Planet. I don't think they have hard copies of those games, but Freedom Planet.
But they do here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Here in our mystery rental store. The bait and switch is what we call this rental store.
Well, I was going to say the Freedom Planet is not Bubsy-like, but Bubsy is attempting to be a Sonic-like. So it's like, no, this is what you should have done.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I like that answer. Again, assuming that you're trying to like enhance people's lives and not ruin them like I am.
I mean, there's a special kind of like nostalgia and happiness that comes from going to a place on Friday night or going to a Blockbuster on Friday night and like renting a new release and, buying popcorn and snacks or whatever and going home and watching it over the weekend.
Yeah, the ritual of it. Yeah, we're missing
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that, honestly. I didn't know what I had till it was gone. And I want to enhance that, that entire ritual by not, ruining people's lives by putting Garfield in a Sonic 2 cartridge. It's not very cash money of you, Frank.
Okay, how about this? What would you put in a Mario Party box? Someone's taking home a game to play with a bunch of friends.
Overcooked, and this is not a game that I play personally, but it's one that my husband plays with his friends, and they have a roaring good time. Lethal Company, and what's the other one that they play? Pummel Party. Pummel Party is on Steam. It's like a darker Mario Party and without all the characters.
Is it better than Mario Party?
So I hear. Like I said, Don't play that game. I've seen it played. Husband plays it. They love it.
It don't got no Waluigi. It don't got no Princess Daisy. I don't know why you'd bother.
I guess it's less cheap because there's no situation where I think you can like win stars, like participation stars at the end after all the action.
All right, so rental case, they're renting Mario Party, right?
Yeah.
Check this out. They open the case and there's a folded up piece of paper, right?
Yeah.
Like in maybe a nice like origami shape, but like there's something indicating like unfold this, right? And so one little triangle at a time, they carefully unfold it, and inside is the actual secret recipe for Coca-Cola.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do.
You you said that, and it brought to mind, I forget where I see this or the context under which I saw it, but like people are hiding their weed in game cases made to look like Grand Theft Auto. So it's like a blue PlayStation 4 box with the Grand Theft Auto wrap on it, and then you open it up and it's a disc, and it looks like, the Grand Theft Auto disc, but it's not like a disc. It's like a pack that you can seal and reseal, and that's where all your weed is. So if you want to hide your weed from your mother, and like it's got like the little disc hole and everything, like it's a very good facsimile, and it's more expensive than any weed that you would ever put in it, but it's very fun if you need to hide your weed from your mom. That is not advice. That is just me explaining something.
Okay, so at the Bait and Switch, we're running a side weed business. Are we putting these in GTA, or are we picking a different game to put these weed discs in?
I think it's GTA. You got to go.
Yeah, I think that's just it. I think they got it.
Maximum penetration here. You got to like cultural penetration. I think it's GTA.
Yeah. No, I think the Venn diagram between people who play GTA and the people who smoke weed is closer to a circle. So I would put it in, BioShock Infinite. You're better off getting high than playing that game.
Okay, next question. Ash, you are not on the clock. There's no kayfabe here. I want you to be 100% honest with me for our insert credit listening audience. Are esports good?
First of all, I have always ever been 100% honest when I've been on insert credit. There has never been any kind of kayfabe. I am not doing
only time in her life, though. It's crazy.
Yeah. Otherwise, don't believe a word.
Shit. Yes, esports are good. How did you phrase that? Is esports good?
Are esports good?
Yes, but you have to find the right one. And right now, the right ones is the fighting game community. That's pretty much it. Because they're the oldest and they're the best. And it has a lot of cultural penetration. I wouldn't say it's the most welcoming thing, but I'll tell you this much. It's the fucking most diverse esports audience that you'll get versus any other kind of game. Fighting games are the only kinds of esports, like competitive, things that I watch where I can see men, women, and people of color. And I don't get that when I'm watching Overwatch or, Valorant or stuff like that. Like, it's better. Like, it's not like, terrible bad, but there's a fundamental and huge difference when I'm watching something that's like a fighting game based or something that's like PC based, like your Valorants or your CSGOs or whatever.
Are there older players also for fighting games? Because it is
it very much has a higher like age limit that you can participate in and still be competitive versus like the PC games. And that's another thing, because we're all in our 30s at this point, and you look at games like Valorant and Overwatch and whatever, and you're like, oh man, I kind of missed out on that kind of stuff. Like, I can't get into it. I can't be a competitor, or I have to be relegated to like senior leagues, or not that they have senior leagues, they kind of do, but not really. But like a fighting game, you can still like go in and do the kinds of things that Sonic Fox is doing right now, or anybody else. Like Justin Wong is still a competitor for the most part inside things or whatever, but he can still perform at that high level that he performed in when he was doing Evo Moment 37, and he's our age with a kid and stuff like that, and that's just not something you see in those other kinds of games. So yes, esports is good. You have to find the right one, and it's getting worse and worse because of the Saudi sports washing thing, where the Saudi Savvy Games Group is throwing money at everybody, because esports is like this financially struggling thing right now that it has always been. And because they've got all of the money in the world, the Saudi people can afford to throw money at everybody and be like, hey, come to Saudi Arabia for the Esports World Cup or whatever, we'll sponsor this, and da-da-da-da-da. And they're owning these third-party tournament organizers and all that kind of stuff, and it kind of makes everything feel a bit skeevy, like terrible about it. That's why people are not so up on esports right now, especially like your main esports things, but they are still good. They are.
All right. I mean, I don't think you find like a Sonic Fox in a League of Legends or a StarCraft. I've always thought of fighting games as not the same thing as esports. Like, it's a separate thing.
They are, though. Like, if you think about it, they are. It's the same structure. It's the same, like, organizations. They sponsor individuals. It's just they're sponsoring individuals instead of teams. Pretty much, it's the same thing. And you have more ability as an individual to do the things yourself versus, needing some kind of sponsorship the way that team-based esports do.
So team-based esports are bad.
I don't even want to say that they're bad, honestly. I think there are still a lot of good things that are being done, like with Valorant Game Changers and a lot of the tournaments that are based on like, gender inclusive tournaments and structures and things like that. I think those are also really very good, but they come attached with the whole, like, they're probably taking Saudi money to keep themselves afloat, which I feel, I understand that these are things that have to be done in order to keep the scene, such as it is, alive meaningfully. So it is what it is. Yeah, it is what it is. Sorry, I'm not gonna pontificate on that right now, because then I have to think about like the LAV golf tournament and all that kind of stuff, and I'm not equipped, prepared, or willing to go into that. But team-based esports still can be good. Same with regular old esports. You just have to decide what it is that you're willing to stomach.
All right. Then let me give you something else to think about.
Wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
In like speedrunning communities, when people do like a race on, I don't know, Donkey Kong Country or something, there's like 4 people playing at the same time. Why is that not an esport?
I consider it an esport. I don't think it's not.
Oh, that's a pretty good esport.
I mean, we've got the Nintendo Championship, like, doing exactly essentially that. That's esports to me.
Speedrunning is a cool esport.
The coolest.
I mean, IMO.
I think I might agree, but, what got me thinking about that was I believe that team-based esports are probably the most interesting from a technical level if you actually know what's going on, but I'm never going to.
Right.
And I think fighting games are a much easier draw for regular people, because it's it's kind of like watching a tennis match or something. Like you understand that things are going back and forth, and that is the drama, right? Like you're watching the life meters changing, and you're seeing what's affecting that, and like you can get to where you understand, at least on a high level, what's happening. Like if I watch League, I have no idea what's happening ever, and I'd really have to either already be a player or like invest myself in learning how this game works. And that's just not true of watching like basketball, right? Like basketball, they just got to get in the hoop, right? And like it's worth points. Whoever has the most points at the end wins. And as I'm watching, I'll pick up some of the technicalities of it, but like I have that hook immediately where I understand. And I don't feel like I have that in any team-based game.
If the measure of an esports quality is its legibility as a spectator, then there's no beating fighting games and speedrunning, because you can just see what's going on.
Very, very, very true. And the work comes in with the community then to build the narratives. And Dota used to do, and I don't know if they still do, but they used to do something really cool with the international, is that they would have like a special channel. Because you have like 9 different international channels because there's so many matches going on. But there would be one channel that was dedicated to newcomers, where the UI and the commentators would take the time to explain to newer people who have like never seen or are vaguely familiar with Dota, to explain exactly what's going on. And I have not seen that integrated meaningfully into a lot of other team-based esports, because the resources aren't there, because the money isn't there, because, it is what it is. And I think doing a lot of basic level outreach or explaining or tutorial, I guess, for these bigger team-based esports would go a long way in order to like bridge that legibility gap. And a lot of times you have to realize, like, not everything can be for everybody. Like, sometimes that there are things that are for the community, and that's it. And if you want to be a part of that community, you have to do the work to get yourself to a place where you can understand everything that's going on, and that's it. And sometimes that's a good approach as well.
Okay.
And this follow-up question, has ESPN 2 or 3 ever done esports?
I think, legitimately, no joke, I think that they have done esports on ESPN 8, the Ocho. Like, I think they've done that, like, as a, know, they have that little gag where they do the Ocho, where they do, like, the weird sports. And I think that they have done that. And I think in, like, the first couple years of the Overwatch League, there was a partnership with ABC and ESPN where they did broadcast those games on cable. So, yes, that has happened.
Because, I mean, that just strikes me, I don't know, like, I was in a hotel at a show once, and I put on ESPN 2 or 3, and it was the cornhole championship, and I watched it. I don't know. Why not?
ESPN has its own esports channel on YouTube.
Okay, but not broadcast.
Interesting. I mean, ESPN had its own like esports vertical and everything. That's where Jacob Wolf and all of them came from. Like,
right,
that's where they got.
I was wondering more like did they try to broadcast to normals as opposed to people seeking it out? Because I think that, I don't know. I just don't know if that would work or not. But like, I feel like if there were a Street Fighter tournament, like, sometimes ESPN2 or whatever is just on at like a bar, right?
Yeah.
I feel like we're at a point where if, after, Polo or whatever, like a Street Fighter tournament came on, I don't think people would think it was that crazy.
I should say had a channel, because ESPN esports apparently closed in 2021. Their last uploaded video was 3 years ago. But they had a 5-year run.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an untapped market because a lot of the NBA and NFL teams, like they have their own like Madden and 2K teams, like they play those tournaments, like the Cleveland Cavaliers, like they have their own NBA 2K team, and I think they have like their own little gaming lounge in the Rocket Fieldhouse where they play. And I never see those games on ESPN, and there's like there's something there that if ESPN wanted to tap into that, especially because Madden and 2K, especially now with NCAA football coming back, like there's an avenue there that they can, reach out to. This is free game, ESPN, call me if you want some consulting fees. Like, I'll help you out. Like they can tap into that and bridge that gap another way.
As long as we're consulting, I think we should go over to our lightning round. Because Capcom wants the two of you to make 8 unique robot masters for a new Mega Man game that have a sensible cycle of weaknesses. But you can't use ice guys, water guys, fire guys, or electric guys. So we got to come up with these 8 robot masters right now.
Okay.
I can do that. I can't, I'm not going to be able to do it off the cuff. I'm going to need a minute to gather thoughts, but that is something I am absolutely equipped to do.
Okay.
All right, where are we starting, Frank? Start us off. We'll ping pong it.
Okay. Obnoxious man and deplatforming man.
Yeah. Wait, all right, so do you want
Who's weak to whom?
Yeah, do you want weaknesses with these?
Obnoxious is weak to deplatforming.
Yeah.
8 is a lot. Maybe I can maybe I can do 4.
So what is weak to being obnoxious? Is a really good question. Politician man? This is getting too political. Like
politics.
Literally.
President man, maybe.
Yeah.
I like the idea of a robot president man. That would be a good level. Like you go through a Mega Man version of the White House.
He just has like a suit and a blue tie and little pins.
Yeah. No, I do want President Man in this game.
He shoots eagles.
Yeah. He's a robot
President.
Dr. Wily created to impersonate the president.
The only one for sure that's in right now is President Man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I've definitely got one pair.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've got Real Estate Man and Handyman. Okay. And Handyman defeats Real Estate Man.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay.
Having worked in real estate a while, yeah.
Okay, so who defeats Handyman?
Who defeats
It ain't the president.
No, it's not the president. Dadman. Dadman defeats Handyman.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
And then Responsibilities Man.
Wait, okay, so this is a question. Has there ever been a woman in a Mega Man game?
Not a woman, but there was Splash Woman.
I mean, there's Roll, but...
Splash Woman in Mega Man 9, right?
Okay.
And then did 10 have any? I never played 10.
I don't know. I think it's just Splash Woman.
Yeah, Splash Woman was a 9.
This might actually be a real Mega Man villain, but it was the first thing that came into my head, like Dirt Man.
Okay.
Well, there's an Orbit Woman. Okay,
what defeats Dirt? Let's not do Shovel.
No, honestly, I was going to do Kid Man, because kids eat dirt.
Okay.
I like Boy Man.
Boy Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, Boy Man. Yeah, defeats Dirt Man.
Yeah, and Boy Man looks exactly like Mega Man, but just like wearing Ness from Earthbound's shirt and pants.
Or Charlie Brown shirt or something.
Yeah.
Okay, and then what defeats
defeats Boy?
Reality Man defeats Childhood Man.
Yeah, maybe.
Responsibilities. Oh wait, that's
we did Responsibility.
Bill Man. Bill Man beats Boy Man.
Boys don't have bills.
Yeah, that's why Bills defeats them.
Well, okay, it was 8, but do we have the full loop? Who's weak against the president?
Who's weak against the president?
Against the president. Lawsuit Man. New York Attorney General Letitia James Man. That's a deep cut.
I don't think that one was it. I don't think we discussed that one previously. I think you just made that one up.
I did.
No, maybe President Man is like Metal Man, like he's the one that's weak to himself.
Well, okay. I mean, President Man, we established shoots eagles, so we could kind of cheat a little bit and like what's weak to eagles, right? Like it could be a fish. Like there's Fish Man.
What's that?
No water guys.
Is that water? It's fish.
Yeah, it's a fish. What was that pesticide that was like a big problem with like the salmon populations because eagles eat salmon? What was that one pesticide?
Oh
like,
man, this
I know what
we're
you're
getting
talking about.
environmental.
Yeah, we're getting
here.
I know.
I kind of like that there's like a message
Yeah.
in theory, right? Like there's some message to the bosses.
Yeah.
This is too hard of a one to lightning round.
To do
because
off the
it's
cuff,
older.
yeah.
All right. Okay. I want you to do your homework and get back to
But
me.
President Man is in.
Yeah, President Man is in. Absolutely. We'll build it out from there. Ash, you win this episode. Congratulations. Thank you for fielding all my hard questions. What you get to do is come up with a question of your own to ask the panel next week. And we'll discuss that off air at some point. So congratulations on your new responsibilities. Does anyone have anything they'd like to recommend or plug to our audience at the end of this here episode?
Fund your local independent news outlet. There are tons of people who have decided to break out of the traditional journalist structure, either by choice or not by choice, and they cover a wide range of topics. You've got your defectors, you've got Aftermath, you've got Rascal News, you've got Paste Magazine, you've got Gaming Magazine, I think they're called. I can't think of them off the top of my head. But anything that is like a journalistic kind of thing that requires a Patreon to support, go support that because we need that kind of media because it's getting real hard out there for to have like a breadth and a body of critique and journalistic work out there, and people are doing their best they can, but they need money to survive, so go give them your money. That's what I'm plugging.
I want to add to that, even like non-financially, like just start signing up for email newsletters that are interesting and just become a reader again, because like, and that might lead eventually to funding, but like, we're so, fractured and just having a hard time like concentrating on anything substantial these days that I think email newsletters are one of the most exciting things to come back. I'm hoping that forums come back next, but for now we have email newsletters.
Oh, forums are back, baby. It's forums.insertcredit.com, hottest place on the internet.
Pretty good forum, actually.
There was something that you said in there, Frank, that is actually the nugget at all of this. Become a reader again. Yeah. Read. Actually read. Don't digest little bits on Twitter. Don't follow that saved you a click guy. Like, don't do that. Actually read the things that you are interested in. Absorb them. Don't get lured in by hot takes and, Twitter bites and all those kinds of things. Read the long form shit. It's still good.
And you don't have to go right for things that are substantial either. Like, I think you can kind of get your training wheels back and just like, read things that are, just of your weird niche interests, but maybe not super deep. Like this stuff tends to build on itself,
Exactly.
Like, so, whatever, if you find yourself just not reading anymore, you don't immediately have to go subscribe to New York Times or whatever. Like just find something that you think could like sort of get those gears turning again and see where it takes you.
I will say, if you want an extra incentive to sign up for, say, Aftermath, for example, Gita Jackson and I just did a bonus episode of our comic book podcast, 52 Pickup, where we interviewed Mark Wade, and that's available to subscribers only.
Oh, nice. Damn, Mark Wade.
I asked him what the Speed Force is. He had a very interesting answer. So if you want to hear that, check it out. Frank, do you have any specific other things to recommend than just read?
Yeah. Well, I've been doing a little bit better of a job this year playing new games. And it's because people are making games that take like 5 hours and are single player narrative experience. And man, I want more of that.
Hellblade 2.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's definitely something that you can do in 5 hours. That is a single player narrative experience.
Do I need to know anything about the first one?
Not really.
Okay. I just played one called Indica.
Oh, yeah. That's been on my list. Tell me about that.
It's an experience. And I don't want to give the full review or anything, but it's like, it's maybe the most foreign movie video game I've ever played, in that it's just kind of like bizarre and thought-provoking and just gives you that weird feeling at the end. It doesn't follow a very traditional narrative structure, stuff like that. And what I really like about it is that, to me, this shows off the potential of something like Unreal Engine way better than a very expensive Unreal Engine game does, because it's a really pretty looking, fully fleshed out and realized game made by like 10 people. They could make something that looks really, really good because the tools were made for them to do that sort of thing. So really, really digging Indica, and we'll get into it more maybe in our Game of the Year thing.
Indica is definitely for people who pay for a Shudder subscription.
Ooh.
My husband is one of those people.
That's a good back of the box quote. I have an actual recommendation this week. I have a little bit of a story if we have time for it.
Please.
Back in 2010, I have this friend that I've had for many years. Name's Mark. He's a pharmacist in Ballackinwood. And he was the guy who pestered me for months and months and months to play the game Nier. And it was something I kept putting off. It didn't look like something I would enjoy. And as listeners of this podcast know, it's like the one game I talk about. 11 years later, he's like, Alex, I haven't told you to play a game since then. I'm telling you to play this one. It's the visual novel, The House in Fate of Morgana.
Oh.
And I was very hesitant because visual novels are not my thing at all. I literally put it off for 3 years. Every time I saw him, I was like, you play House of Fate of Morgana yet? Play Fate of Morgana? Finally, I sat down and I did the whole thing. And I was just like, the game is like 27 hours long. It is way too long. It's incredibly slow. It just like the first 6 hours of it are no fun whatsoever. But by the end of it, I was just like doubled over, full body heaving in tears. It's a game. It was an experience that absolutely turned me inside out, and I couldn't possibly recommend it any higher. It's an ordeal to get through, but if you're listening to this, I promise you it is 100% worth it. Frank, you're exempt because you're a million years old.
Whoa.
Ash, have you played this?
I have not played House and Fata Morgana, but everybody whose opinion I respect, especially about visual novels, has told me nothing but unreserved, like high quality. This is the shit, and
it's the one.
One day I will do it.
Well, add me to the chorus, and that's my legitimate recommendation. If you've ever been curious about a visual novel and you don't mind it when people tell you it gets good later, that's the one to do. Anyway, here's the usual rigmarole. If you enjoyed this episode or any episode of Insert Credit, you can rate and review us. That would be really, really helpful. You could support us on patreon.com/insertcredit to keep the show going with your support. If you'd like to sponsor our show with an advertisement or personal message, you could do that by contacting us at show@insertcredit.com. You can also join our community at thegreatforums.insertcredit.com or find us on youtube.com/insertcreditshow. This episode is edited by Esper Quinn with original music by Kurt Feldman. I'm Alex Jaffe.
I'm Frank Cifaldi.
I'm Ash Parrish.
And thanks for listening. Okay, we did it. We did an episode of the whole Insert Credit. Good job, everybody.
Yay!
The whole Insert Credit.
The whole thing.